Monique Idlett is an entrepreneur, investor, philanthropist, and innovator. She is well known within both the entertainment and tech industries as a woman who positively impacts lives through her work. In 2017, she founded Venture Capital, an early-stage investment firm that focuses on women and minority-led startups. Candice Matthews Brackeen is a general partner at Lightship Capital, a first-of-its-kind $50 million venture fund for underrepresented founders in the Midwest. Candice also is the executive director of the Hillman Accelerator, the first accelerator in the Midwest also set up to support underrepresented founders. Leigh Radford is the Senior Vice President and founder of P&G Ventures, an early-stage startup studio that creates and grows brands and businesses by building a win-win partnership with entrepreneurs, visionaries, and startups. Rob Richardson was elected as the youngest chair in the history of the University of Cincinnati. He's raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for student scholarships, including the largest corporate diversity scholarship at UC. He's also run as the statewide Democratic nominee for Ohio Treasurer and continues to disrupt common narratives as the host of the Disruption Now podcast. It's with great pleasure that I introduce your host for the session, Rob Richardson.
Hey, welcome everybody. I'm Rob Richardson. I hope you guys have all been enjoying your day here with P&G's Breakdown to Breakthrough. A lot of great information, and we're honored here to be your final keynote. I promise not to bore you. Look, we have some dynamic people on this panel. We're going to make this a fun session. As you can tell from the intro, we try to make this engaging while also having real content that really connects. So this is think of this path to growth, as you know, in this session, but this is like an Ask Me Anything session. I'm going to ask them some tough questions from an entrepreneur's point of view so you can gain some knowledge about the different paths of opportunity for growth, because no matter how great your business idea, no matter what, you can't do it alone. It takes support, it takes infrastructure, and we have great partners who have helped entrepreneurs just like yourself grow. So it's an honor to have all three of these panelists on. And I really want them to start to really kind of introduce themselves. And so my first question is, I'm an entrepreneur looking to approach your organization and you. Tell me a little bit about your organization, and I'll start with Candice.
Oh, thanks. Hey, Rob. Thanks so much for having me. I'm Candice Matthews Brackeen, founder of Lightship Foundation. We have an accelerator, a boot camp, and an online pitch competition called Twitch Pitch. Also general partner at Lightship Capital, a $50 million fund focused on supporting underrepresented founders in the mighty middle of the country.
All right. Leigh Radford, why don't you please introduce yourself for the audience?
Hi, Rob. Great to be here. Yes, Leigh Radford, Senior Vice President of P&G Ventures and founder of the group. And we're a startup studio within Procter & Gamble that partners with entrepreneur visionaries and inventors to help create the next billion-dollar brand for the company.
And last but certainly not least, as you see, the star of Undercover Billionaire, Monique.
Thank you.
I'm calling you the star.
Let me just tell you how lucky are you, three amazing women during Women's Month. I mean, look at you. You're the one winning today.
I agree. Hey, no argument here. No argument from me.
Right. Well, thank you for that intro. And Candice and Leigh, I'm so excited to be able to have a conversation with the two of you. I'm Monique Idlett, founder and managing partner of Ventures, a $50 million seed stage fund that specializes on a lens with women and people of color founders, the underserved and undervalued. We pretty much invest everywhere outside of Silicon Valley.
Good for you. I love it. I love it. So let's actually talk about your company and your organization and how you know when it's the right fit. Like, how would I know? I'm a founder looking to looking for the next step of growth. I'm at that stage where, we're not exploding, but it's clear we have we're starting to build some customers. I'll actually start with Candice. Like, how do you approach teaming up and knowing that that this founder is a right fit, and what should I as a founder know or do when I approach your organization?
So I think that there's never a wrong time to engage with our team. We talked a little bit before this call about being in service to founders. And we really feel like that's what we are. We are in service to BIPOC founders, people who identify as women who are founders, those who have disabilities, LGBTQIA+ founders. And so at any point in their life cycle, they're welcome to engage with us through the programming that we offer and through the fund. We want to help people navigate different corporations, customers, et cetera, and sometimes with other venture capitalists. So through our program, we work with all sorts of founders, those who have brick and mortar companies and those who have high growth and venture backable companies. On the fund side though, so as we invest, we're looking for traction. That traction.
So you were talking right there on the accelerator side, the Hillman side, the first side.
Absolutely. On the fund side, we want to see traction. So that traction can be with customers, that traction can be revenue. And we typically are looking at companies as they're approaching $100,000 a month in revenue. And that just allows us to de-risk the investment. We do talk to folks before that, and we love to track companies over time, but that's usually our sweet spot, is a seed stage company. And that's seed stage by Midwest standards, not necessarily coastal standards. That's the truth.
Yeah. What does that what does that mean by Midwest versus coastal standards? I mean, what do you mean by that?
Valuations are different on the coast. They typically are taking a much larger risk at a much earlier stage than we sometimes do here in the Midwest. And we don't necessarily have the appetite for higher valuations because we aren't able to achieve our kind of ownership percentage that we're looking for.
Got it.
Yeah. And us, we have some segments and sectors that we do typically, we have to invest in. So consumer packaged goods and services, e-commerce, sustainability, artificial intelligence, and healthcare. So if you don't fit in those realms, then our fund wouldn't be the right one for you.
Makes sense. Leigh, so when we're talking about working with P&G Ventures, I would imagine there are some differences between working with a traditional venture capital firm. If you can let us know, like what would P&G Ventures look for?
Yeah, we also focus on early stage, but I think Candice's point, if there's great innovation in the spaces that we're looking to play, I think you should approach us. So we are a startup studio, so we partner with the entrepreneurs. We really focus on them very similar to how we focus on consumers and what are their needs, where are their opportunities and where are their gaps. Because there's a good chance that P&G has resources to fill those gaps and do things together. So it's a different model. I think there's all models for all different type of businesses and individuals. I also say we're open to individuals who may not even know that they're an entrepreneur yet. They may be inventors, but we're really looking for core consumer products that are solving big consumer needs in core areas and spaces where we want to play, which we're very public and on what those spaces are and are found on our website, and looking for entrepreneurs and inventors to come our way.
All right, Monique, how about you? How does Rain Ventures look at this?
I mean, I look at it in both the way Candice and Leigh does. I think that it's a big misconception that founders only need capital. I think that we have to understand that where the three of us play are at the seed stage. It's super early. It's super vulnerable for a founder. So outside of just, a pipeline for capital, they need access to resources. They need access to network. They need access to potential co-founders. I think that understanding that, I call it the bumper system, and we use it in the music industry. We see that star. We see that one, that idea, that founder, that team that is exceptional. And we make sure by all means necessary, we get them from Rain Ventures perspective, 12 to 18 months to their Series A. We get them healthy. We get them in a very comfortable situation. And outside of deploying capital, even if a company doesn't fit our thesis, we either align them with other funds, other investors. And by the way, everything's not answer is for VC. Sometimes it is in alignment with a partnership with a bank. A line of credit might be the better situation instead of giving over equity. So we actually try to explore all options. We are not a selfish fund. We're here to make sure that we're creating healthier companies. That's the more important thing. And yes, return of investment, but in a conscious way.
Yeah. I mean, to that point, let's speak a little more about other ways to help beyond capital. You talked to a lot of entrepreneurs. I'm sure their first, second, and third answer is going to be capital, right? So I get it, because money's oxygen when it comes to being an entrepreneur. However,
yeah, but if you're not, if you and your team aren't developed enough, you're just going to run through the money. So the
Exactly.
money isn't always, the answer isn't always capital, right? It might be having a CFO who maybe understands budgeting better. All creatives, aren't meant to be the COO, the CFO as well.
Oh God, no! I know I'm not. No, I'm not that is not my area. It's don't allow me anywhere towards being a CFO or a COO. Not my area of passion or purpose. But Leigh, talk to that a little bit too, from P&G's perspective. Other ways that you look to partner with entrepreneurs beyond just capital, because I mean, Monique makes a very good point, right? People think, and I understand, think they only need capital, but there's always more to the needs when you look under the hood.
When we talk to partners or potential partners, it is truly in a partnership way. I think we're up to 13 different partnership models, and it really starts with the entrepreneur first. Sometimes they're looking for a quick exit, an acquisition. Sometimes they're saying, I want to continue to run this, but I have huge gaps. Others are saying, I have some technology, but I have no understanding of how to manufacture it or make it happen. Or they're further along and they're thinking about how to scale it and how do we think about distribution channels. So it's really starting with the need of that individual or that small team who has a great vision and a great technology and a great proposition, and we create the deal or the partnership to make that happen.
Yeah, Candice, I'm curious to see, when you think about a real life example, when a founder approached you and they surprised you by maybe you didn't think you were going to invest in them and you ended up investing in them. Can you think of a moment when that might have happened and kind of just tell us so we can all maybe learn from it?
What's interesting is I think we know pretty early on if we're going to invest in a company. There is a little bit of kind of pattern matching, I think, that happens amongst any VC, and you can sometimes see when a founder has it or if they do not. As the way they present themselves. So I don't know if I necessarily have that specific example for you.
Okay. If you don't have that, that's fine. How about the opposite? How about when someone, I know you got to have this, when someone's come to you and they've done it all wrong. I think it's important to learn what not to do too when you're approaching this, when you're approaching this as a founder. I bet there's an example there. That's my guess.
When they've done it all wrong?
Yes. You don't have to say who it is, but you can just give the example so we can learn.
So I truly believe that there are lessons to be learned. And so, I mean, I know I've personally done it all wrong before. This is not my first time starting a company. And so folks that do it wrong sometimes don't ask for help and support. They don't let the others know around them when they need help, when they're running out of money, when they're having issues or problems within their families or within their home. And so they're not kind of an open book. I think that is probably one of the most important lessons, the way they spend money, right? And so lots of folks spend money too quickly on marketing before the product. So product really comes first and then marketing comes after that. So spending kind of too big of a chunk ahead of time on like creating a buzz around their company, but there is no actual company there. So managing product early and learning how to do that early, I think is really important and will drive a company into the ground. And I think not raising enough capital when they are venture backable is sometimes an issue as well. So those are causing problems.
Yeah, I know, Monique, we've talked about this before, that you often like to know the entrepreneur you invest in very well. And you also mentioned that you don't usually invest in just one founder. Usually you like to invest in teams. Talk through
Not usually, we haven't.
Yeah, there you go. So like, So how do you guide someone? How does someone know when they need a co-founder, or how they should go about that process? Like, how do you know? How do you know when it's right? Like, because everybody shouldn't have. Some people do. I think most people need to have co-founders. But how do you go about that process, and how do you get the right fit for co-founders? How have you seen it work very well? Because these are very intimate relationships. Like, this is like almost like having a marriage in terms of being in a business and being in a startup.
I mean, it is, but the reality is that you cannot scale a company without a team. And when you're that early on, you're not trying to spend money on salaries. You're spending money on your product or your whatever it is that you're providing. And so you need a co-founder. You need someone who's going to feel as vested into this company to give up their time, to sacrifice the way that you have to in the startup world. And so, I do believe that business and personal are two separate things. And so I believe that you have to get the best person to complement your skill sets. Erica and I have complementary skill sets for Rain Ventures. It's why it works so well. And I do believe that as you're building your team, what I always tell founders is you have to know your skill set as a founder, and you have to also know what your company will need in order to grow in a healthy way. And that requires being very honest with yourself. I'm very honest with myself. I know the areas that I can play in, and I know the areas I will not play in. And Erica, the same. I think that that's always what we tell founders, is to be very transparent with themselves on who and what they need. And then also understand that it's about complementary skill sets, not about people agreeing with you.
Yeah, that's really good. Leigh, what do you look for in terms of a team or a founder when P&G looks to work with them? Like, what do you think is the most one or two essential qualities you look for within that team?
Well, I fundamentally first look at what problem they're looking to solve. Are they clear on the problem they're looking to solve to create a business? The second is we do look at the individuals and their passion and focus and their insight to the world around them. I think going back to one of the big opportunities we often see is the competitive landscape. Eventually a lot of our businesses want to eventually be on a retail shelf. And that's a very, very different environment of which, a competitor can come out within 6 months. And so if you don't have a competitive point of difference, IP that protects your idea, and a very clear understanding of that competitive landscape, even early on, and what you're building against, then it's no more of a short-lived proposition. So those are the few things we look at: a core product and a great team who has that visionary approach of how do they think about building a long-lasting business.
Candice, Leigh makes a good point. I've heard time and time again about understanding the problem you're solving. People can get lost in not only the marketing, but they can get lost in the technology and not be focused on what is it that you're trying to solve. If you focus on the technology can be there, but you have to know what issue you're solving. When you look at pitch decks, for example, what do you see missing most often? Is it that people haven't clearly defined the problem? Is it they haven't clearly defined the market? Like, what do you see in terms of needing the most improvement overall? Because I'm sure you see a whole lot of pitches and a whole lot of decks.
See about 2,000 decks a year.
Oh, wow. That's a lot. That's a lot.
And so I've seen a lot of like really terrible decks, but really good ones too. So I would say what's missing most often is the reason why that team is going to be the one to take it across the finish line. So not putting enough emphasis on the team and what team kind of needs to be built, as well as just a clearly defined how this company is going to get to a win and to an exit. I think those things are always missing. I think sometimes people try to tell too much in a deck. It can be really short and concise.
What's about the right length for a deck? I mean, just top of the napkin. Like what is it? Is it 8 pages, 10?
It's 10 slides, right?
Okay.
It can be 12. It can be 10, but don't give me 12 pages of an appendix either. So there are great decks online, and people shout this all the time, like Airbnb's decks online. You can see what, some blow up mattresses turned into. And so those decks are available. Use them. Everyone uses the same template, and there is nothing wrong with not using it. I just wish that people wouldn't try to keep creating the wheel. It is already created. 10 slides. Go for it. The team, the market, how you plan to attack it, how you plan to get there in year 1 through 5. Like, even though it's a guess, it needs to be an educated guess.
Yeah.
And really bounce it off a few people before you just go in for the money. There are people who are there who would be willing to listen. And sometimes that's your kids. Sometimes that's your spouse. My kids can really break apart a pitch deck. I bet that, Monique, your children can too. So, ask someone else before you go in directly to a VC. So we always give grace. Not every person does.
Yeah. I mean, that great point. Candice and Monique, you both emphasize the same things in different ways, and I think that having a partner like P&G on here is I want to dive into this discussion a little bit. You both mentioned that this is your funds, though they focus on diverse and being diverse and being inclusive. You're not. This is not charity. This is not about social impact. It's about capitalism, and it's about return on investment ultimately. Why do you think that's so important to emphasize? I can start with Monique, then go back to Candice, and then I love just Leigh, just to throw your perspective after hearing from those two. Monique.
I'll say this is that I think the stats tell us why, right? I think we see a lot of dollars in the philanthropic world, and those are dollars that they're saying they're not necessarily as concerned about what happens with that return. Okay. They don't need as much data, et cetera, et cetera. And then we talk about this VC of investing world and our pension funds, et cetera. They care about every single penny and they care about the return on that. And we've been getting traditionally as women and people of color, philanthropic dollars. Well, we need the dollars that you care about so that we know that you believe in what we're doing. We are not charity. We have higher returns. We are generating larger revenues. It's in the proof. So why are we still getting philanthropic dollars?
Yeah. Candice.
Yeah, the market has failed us, right? So there's a huge gap here. So market has failed women and people of color, Black people specifically, for generations now. Now, if the market fails in a certain area, you can attack that market failure. So I think that's what we're doing. We are taking advantage of a failure in the market. We're investing in that space where no one else is. We are shooting fish in a barrel every day. I cannot tell you how many great deals I see. I will deploy capital into about 36 companies over the next few years. They are coming to me constantly. I will deploy it much earlier than I could have. I could have done a larger fund, but this is a first fund. It's an emerging fund, and no one's willing to take the risk, the perceived risk. But my call directly before this, oh my goodness, the deal. I can't believe it. And so there's a market failure. We're attacking it. And our majority peers who are doing the same work are, they're all fishing in an ocean with a ton of fish. They're out there, right? But they're all standing kind of shoulder to shoulder trying to catch the same ones over and over. Monique and I are here in the center of the country. Nobody else is here. She's in the South. Nobody's here. And so we're just reeling them in every day.
Candice will appreciate this because I've been in Miami for almost 20 years. Oh, wow. Candice has been here for a while. And it's so interesting to see all of these VC and Silicon Valley people coming here as if they just discovered the Miami market. And they're going to save Miami, et cetera. And, this is that mentality.
Savior complex. We can get all to that.
This is that mentality that goes from city to city to city. And, it's really encouraging to see what Leigh is doing. Candice and I have always respected and supported each other in what we do. I think it's really important that we keep recycling this concept of this is the biggest market opportunity. For those who keep being concerned about the dollar and the return on it, this is the opportunity and the market that they have been missing out on. It is a really great feeling to be a first-time fund manager by their terms, even though for 9 years I used my own money. It's really nice to be called by founders who are oversubscribed, saying, you know what, we removed some people because we have to have Rain Ventures on our cap table. And as we see founders being more conscious about who's on their cap table, we're going to see so much of this shift, and it's going to start being done in the more inclusive and the right way. And we're going to start seeing the companies be inclusive from ground up. That is what this is all about.
Yeah.
Just one last thing before Leigh jumps too. I'll say that, intelligence is distributed evenly across the country, but opportunity is not.
That's right.
Yep. That's it. That's a we can do. I wish I could do a mic drop moment for you. That's a really great point, right? It is. There you go. Do the snaps. We'll do something. There you go.
Yeah, we're just trying to make certain that everyone has the same opportunity, because there are plenty of intelligent people out here that are ready to.
Right. The process, the due diligence does not change. The access does.
Yes. I mean, I think it's about, as I get to Leigh, it's about a couple of things it's about changing the narrative. First of all, this is like, the narrative is that we're doing this because, this is the right thing to do. Nothing wrong with that, by the way, or this is something like, this is charity. No, it's not. It's the profitable thing to do for reasons that was already pointed out. This is demographics. This is where it's at. So if you have populations that understand the demographics that they're from, you're going to be able to make more money. It's actually not that hard. It's pretty simple, but the narrative has been so dominant that, the only person that could be a founder, he has to be a white guy with a hoodie on that looks like Mark Zuckerberg. Like, no, he doesn't. That's actually that's what you think innovation looks like, but it's a lot broader than that. Yeah. And then I would also say, from a company point of view, as I go to, as I actually go to Procter & Gamble, you look at not getting it right in the process. As we move to technology, we talked about earlier, understanding the problem that you're solving. Microsoft, not to pick on them, like Microsoft created a racist bot. Why? They pulled data online, listening to people on Twitter. Have you all been on Twitter? Like, listen, when you pull it from Twitter, you know what's going to come there, because people have inherent biases. So if you have people on your team that were probably diverse in a leadership position at the front end, they probably would have told you, maybe we should have a process we're thinking about before we just input the data. So this is why I know P&G has been good about this as from a corporate culture point of view. But this is why this is not like, we're not asking for charity. This is profitable for your company. This is better for the economy, period.
Yeah, I just want to build on a couple of comments that Monique and Candice said. It's where the opportunity lies. So what we're seeing, even being a Midwest company, we are finding founders and casting that net, broader and in different fishing holes than I think the traditional coasts have done. And that is providing unique opportunities for these entrepreneurs that are looking for a different way. And that's what P&G Ventures is really there to do, is to open another door, beyond the great work that Monique and Candice is doing. It's just a third better way, or not better, a different way. And that's what we're trying to get out there to everybody. And this whole area of, getting the best talent regardless, and being inclusive to that, is so much about who our consumers are and what our company is about. And that's what's exciting, because I do believe we're tapping into the opportunity that some people wonder, where did you find that? And it's just because we're looking differently and eyes wide open. Eyes wide open.
It gets kind of tough when you're only looking in one space.
Yes, exactly.
Forever and ever.
And it's amazingly energizing.
If there was something from each one of the groups, is there something now that you don't currently offer that you would like to be able to offer to your founders? Anybody can take that question.
One of the things that was recently really hard to see was our fastest growing fintech company, who is killing it out here. How difficult it was for them to close a Series A.
You're talking about solo funds, right?
Yeah, that. But one of the things that we are now seeing that Eric and I are trying to tackle that we don't do currently, but we're going to try to do, is give them credit lines. These companies are having amazing revenue, and they can, because of what they look like, they cannot get credit lines. It is the most ridiculous thing. And when they are offered credit lines, the interest rates it's not even reasonable. It's not feasible. Reasonable is very predatory. And so we want to see that change for these founders.
Yeah. Candice?
My answer was really more capital, and especially through that Series A crunch. And I'll piggyback on exactly what Monique said. It's that working capital that they need. Obviously we're working with a lot of companies with physical products, so consumer packaged goods, and they can't use all of their venture capital for inventory. That's exactly stability. And so how do we get ourselves out of that rut without having to take in too much venture capital, give up too much equity just for inventory? That's right. Just not the right thing. So we can solve these things really early on in the early stages of the company, and then they won't have to give away so much. And then they have more money for their families long term, and they can build generational wealth.
So I want to get to Leigh, but I want to dive into a point on this a little bit. Like, how, as a founder, how do you navigate what is the wrong turn for you to take? Right? It's because when you're desperate, it's dangerous for you. But again, sometimes there's no
good decisions made out of desperation. That is a fact.
Yeah, there you go. So don't view yourself as desperate. For one, I guess that's so. How do you approach knowing what are the right terms to take? Just generally as a founder, you guys are coming from the VC side, but still want to help founders. Like, what would you advise founders as they go through this process when they have the ability to get capital, but there are some that are very predatory? And as you just mentioned, like, what should they do when they find themselves in this situation?
I think they have to say.
I can jump. Go ahead. Go ahead, Candice.
No, Leigh, you go first.
No, go ahead, Leigh.
Yeah, I think what I see is, again, being very clear on the problem to solve and what is the first problem to solve. And I think we talked earlier about making sure that you understand what is the product and what is a problem, and do it sequentially. I do believe I see sometimes the ability of jumping ahead of before they're ready. So that's one of the biggest areas of just making sure you don't over subscribe when you don't really know clearly what the key issue is that you need to solve first. And I wanted to go back, Rob, and you asked as far as what is the opportunity that is out there? And
sure.
Candice and Monique both said from a capital standpoint, I think there's two things that we're trying to solve and have opportunity to continue to better ourselves. Is first of all awareness. Talking to you all today is giving a broader sweep that there's different ways to start up. And that's really where we're hoping to fill a gap. We do a lot of innovation challenges that are open and inclusive to all. And we really try to spread those nets very broad to let people come forward. And that's been really, really exciting about seeing how that can go forward.
What do you see as from the founder's point of view as the opportunity in this moment, given, COVID, will just specifically, and you can definitely speak to, I don't even know the right term to say, the continuing environment of racial injustice in this country would probably be the best way to say it. How would you speak to that, just from from what you see as P&G's role, and then if you can just think from the founder's point of view, what are the opportunities in this moment, given COVID and given the world has definitely shrunk in size, as Candice pointed out?
Yeah, two very different but very interconnected. From a COVID standpoint, first, what we're seeing is a change in how consumers behave. The role of the home, the role of, and we're very fortunate to have a company where a lot of our products are used inside the home. And the data that we're seeing, the role of aging consumers, and the role of institutions, and more consumers wanting to stay in their home longer. A lot of these major trends that are coming forward are going to change us for a long time to follow, and there's innovation that comes out of that. So it's really interesting to see the pivots on where innovation is happening because of the change of behaviors. From an overall unrest standpoint, I see the area of being just increase in sensitivity. And in that sensitivity also talks opportunity and how people interact. I think this equalizer in a way of, social connection and internet and, travel. I mean, connections are no longer about geographic. And I think that opens up a lot of opportunity for more people to play. We've seen that in our innovation challenges, when things were based in one part of the world versus the other. Now it's open to all. And that type of just how we're interacting in business and, leveling that playing field of access, I hope is a way of opening an opportunity for all and being more inclusive.
Yeah, as we wrap up here, I would say with COVID definitely was a disruptor, but I think it was an accelerator of trends. I do believe there's always going to be now virtual components to our lives. My parents, I'm sure most people's parents now, they weren't doing Zoom before that. Everybody does a Zoom. Everybody knows what that is now. That's in our dictionary. Like, oh, let's go meet up in Zoom, right? We've now changed, and we were always going to get there. I think we just accelerated the path there. And so what I tell founders is this, like, there are some people, like, I'm an extrovert, as you can probably tell. I love being around people. I love being around crowds. I love speaking in front of crowds. Haven't been able to do any of that, but I've been able to actually expand my network more than ever because you're able to go meet with people. I know some people don't like the networking virtually. And if you're here watching us today, thank you. And you're going to get a chance to meet some of these folks, and you can connect with them in a way that you couldn't. If we were at a conference, right, and we were speaking and we were in front of 4,000 people, and then 30 people would wait to talk to, not me, but these three in line, right? And they would wait to meet these folks, and then it would be hard to have the type of connections and conversations you can have right now. So I say take advantage of this moment right now, because you can't control what COVID is doing. To racial injustice, I would say this. I would say this is now, I think, because of COVID, in a lot of ways, people were forced to pay attention. If you're Black, we got to pay attention. Like, this is our life. When I was in Cincinnati, I had to. When I was growing up as a teenager, the police force was extremely bad, and I had to be extremely careful. And I was racially profiled all the time. It's just a fact, right? That's one example of many things. But being Black it's something we had to go through. But to bring the COVID analogy, the ability to socially distance is privilege. And so now that you've seen it, we have to challenge ourselves to not socially distance from the problem, because injustice thrives when we have indifference, and we have a lot of issues to solve in this country. So I am hopeful that there is a focus on this. And now is why we're having this conversation. What are we going to do to be more intentional, to challenge ourselves? Because it's a continuous process and it's a continuous journey. And so with that, I want to thank everybody. This has been a great panel. You guys have energized me for today. And I hope you guys, for those who can stay around, they'll get a chance to talk to some of the founders, and we'll have some breakouts and talk for a few. But thank you so much. You guys were so great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.